Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. On the one hand, it's a story we're all familiar with. She falls in love with him, they get married. He turns out to be kind of a dirtbag. And yet, in her new novel, Liars, author Sarah Manguso makes this story feel fresh through the sheer force of her writing style.
Why are you so angry? My husband frequently asked me why I was so much angrier than other women. It always made me smile. I was exactly as angry as every other woman I knew.
It's a book about a marriage, a really bad one, in case you didn't pick that up from that short line there. And Manguso and I talked about how her style worked in conveying the feelings a bad marriage arouses, and also about the bill of goods women are sold about marriage. That's ahead.
On Wait, Wait, we ask very well-known people about things that people don't know about them, like what was Malala Yousafzai doing when she heard she'd won the Nobel Peace Prize?
I went to my physics class. I said I have to finish my school day because when you get the Nobel Peace Prize for education, you have to finish your school day.
I'm Peter Sagal. For the real secrets of the rich and famous, listen to the Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me podcast from NPR.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
This book is about a marriage dissolving, at least in part due to infidelity. I've heard you say before that this book is mostly fiction except for the parts that actually happened to you. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I wrote this book in less than 2 years during a high-conflict divorce and being the primary parent to my young child during COVID. I was fueled by pure rage, and I needed to put it somewhere, so I wrote this book. And of course, it's alluring to think that every novel is a roman à clef, that it's secretly a memoir, but this book is a novel because I needed to let Jane, the protagonist, be both angrier and freer in the end than I thought I had permission to be.
And was it like a cathartic experience, or did you just want to get it out?
Honestly, I experience all of my writing as cathartic and therapeutic, like a relief. Like in some way, I can't really completely stop talking about it or stop thinking about it until I get it down into language.
You know, you mentioned before that this book is fiction because you wanted the character to be angrier and freer, right, than you actually were. Could you read a bit for me on it's on page 63. Could you read that section?
Yes, I'd love to. Anger is one of the last privileges of the truly helpless. Infants are angry. Have you ever sat all night holding a baby in the dark who's screaming right into your face? It changes you. Or so my husband used to say. He'd done that one night, sat and been screamed at. I was sitting right next to him, but he always told the story as if he'd been the only one there. All the other days and nights, it had just been me. But that one night had been the real game changer, apparently.
I think fans of yours will find something familiar about this sort of like short and terse sentences, right? But it works in this context, I think, because in that situation, in like a really bad relationship, your thoughts can go from like angry to, loving to just like all scatterbrained and all over the place. How did you think about like the form and the shape of the novel?
Yeah, I knew that I wasn't writing like a jewel box mystery in which you never see what's coming and there are lots of plot twists. I mean, the plot of this book is fairly straightforward. I think if you're paying attention, you kind of know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But for me, what I wanted readers to experience reading this book was just a sort of very gentle vacillation between thinking John is just a regular guy and Jane is just a sort of, regular wife to, John's a cartoon villain and Jane is a cartoon idiot. And I think ideally I would love the experience of reading this book for, and anybody would be to think like, oh, my relationship is better than that. Oh, no, my relationship might not be as good as this particular scene. And so on, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until the real question becomes, if you're a wife in the particular dyad that you're involved in, am I being abused? And if you're the husband in your dyad, am I an abuser?
Mm-hmm. This book is titled Liars, plural, with the main couple, Jane and John. I think it's pretty obvious what John is lying about. Like you said, if you're paying attention, you know. What about Jane?
Yeah, that's initially I chose the title Liars to describe the cheating husband, John, and his mistress. But as I wrote the book, I realized that the wife, Jane, the protagonist, is a liar too. At root, this is a book about Jane's self-deception. She really wants to believe that her marriage is, if not good, basically comparable to the marriages around her. She wants to think she's kind of in an average scenario because, the sunk cost fallacy is telling her that it'll be exhausting and potentially leave her in a worse place if she leaves the relationship. So she's looking everywhere for signs that it's not that bad. And people love to say that marriage takes work.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't talk about what constitutes reasonable relationship work on a granular level, without this just mountain of details that Jane piles up, we enable abuse. And that's another reason that it was so important for me to pack the book with details.
Yeah. Is there a bit of, how do I say this? Like, woman's superiority in Jane? This bit of like, I'm not like the other, like, this won't be like other marriages. I'm going to make this like a more progressive, more, equal version of what partnership looks like.
Yes, exactly. Women of Jane's generation, of my generation, were sold a bill of goods for a new kind of heterosexual partnership that for most of us never actually materialized. The men didn't get the memo.
Yeah. And that's the other liar in the book, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I mean, everybody is lying to everybody else, but most of all to themselves.
Yeah. What do you want husbands to take away from this book?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I want men to come to the book not feeling preemptively alienated and thinking that this is a book about how all men are trash. It's not. I really want to be adamant that the husband-wife dynamic, a person of any gender can be a husband and a person of any gender can be a wife. And it really is just about the power imbalance in most marriages in a place where there just aren't a lot of social supports for people who raise children, for people who bear children. So I guess I would just like for men to read the book and think about the ways in which they're complicit.
Sarah Manguso, author of Liars, a novel, which is out this Tuesday, July 23rd. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
New from the Embedded podcast. Elite female runners are being told they can't compete because of their biology.
Not only can you not compete, you're not actually female.
Hear about the 100-year history of sex testing in women's sports and the hard choices these athletes are facing now. Listen to Tested, a new series from CBC and NPR's Embedded podcast.
How does the brain process memories? Why is AI a solution and a problem for our climate? What is leadership in 2025 and beyond? The TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions and the most complicated ideas of our time with the world's greatest thinkers. Listen now to the TED Radio Hour from NPR.